I'm not quite sure what I was expecting when I went on Netflix a few weeks ago, and randomly clicked on Sony Animation's newest outing, K-pop Demon Hunters. Let alone that I'd still be thinking about this film weeks after watching it. But K-pop Demon Hunters isn't just a surprise hit, it's the latest chapter in Sony Animation's jaw-dropping reinvention. If you had told me at the start of the decade that the studio behind the Emoji Movie of all things would somehow become maybe the most exciting force in Western animation, well, I'd probably look you dead in your eyes and tell you to
stay off the weed.
But yet, here we are, so we might as well talk about it. I genuinely did not expect to like this movie as much as I did. Like, I don't even really listen to K-pop music, unless you count semi-ironically enjoying a Cat's Eye track every now and then. And I didn't really know much of anything about this film going into it besides the animation looking nice and the kinda on the nose title. But here's a quick overview of the film, also probably a lot of spoilers by the way. K-pop Demon Hunters centers around a fictional K-pop girl group known as Huntrix, who, following in the steps of pop sensation Hannah Montana, are living double lives, but like, as demon hunters, obviously. When their singing connects to the hearts of their fans, they power an ancient barrier that protects our world from the demon realm, known as the Hun Moon, that's been kept up through the efforts of demon hunters spanning generations. However, the forces of evil seemingly had one more trick up their sleeves when combating Huntrix.
They're magicians. I mean demons. Obviously demons.
The Saja Boys. Demons disguised as a rival boy band, in an attempt to weaken the Hun Moon by stealing the souls of Huntrix's fans. From there, you get the typical tropes that you'd expect in a movie like this. Some group drama, some slapstick comedy, some romance, and some shipping fuel. You know, the usual. But I think the thing about this film that connected with me the most was honestly its pretty deep themes. This film excels in tackling the struggles of identity and self-acceptance with all three girls, which you can see within some of their lyrics of the songs, most notably in the song Golden. But you really see this struggle particularly with the characters of Rumi and Jinu. I won't go too deep into details, but if you've seen the film, then you know both of these characters are struggling with accepting parts of themselves or things that they've done that bring them shame. However, the film also tackles themes like what makes something inherently good or evil, unity, and the power of music. And as expected with a Sony animated film at this point, the actual animation in this movie is pretty damn amazing. The colors are vibrant, the characters are super expressive, and I just love how much the action in this film is synced with the music. Speaking of music though, like I said earlier, I don't really listen to K-pop like at all. And yet this soundtrack has legitimately been on repeat for me since the time I watched the film. And FYI, the correct top 3 songs in no particular order are Take Down, Your Idol, and Golden. I don't make the rules. It's so apparent throughout this film that K-pop Demon Hunters isn't just another studio experiment. It's a deeply personal, years in the making passion project from its creators. This film spent nearly 9 years in development, which is such a rarity in modern animation, especially for a non-franchise, non-sequel project. From the very beginning, the creative team helmed by Maggie Kang and Chris Applehands set out to make something that merged together so many aspects culturally, but also just in their everyday lives. Like literally one of the mascots of this film is based on Maggie Kang's real life pet cat, and that honestly says a lot about just how intentional every aspect of this film's creation actually was. Beneath the flashy animation, the ancient lore, and the incredibly catchy music lies a film that was created by people that clearly really cared about the characters, the representation, and the story's emotional core. That authenticity bleeds into every aspect of this film. It doesn't feel manufactured, or like it was shot out some computer thanks to some algorithm, like so many big studio animation projects sometimes do. Instead, it feels like a group of artists finally getting to make something so perfectly tailored to what they actually love and care about. K-pop Demon Hunters isn't just a one-off success, however. It's the latest in a remarkable streak for Sony Pictures Animation. One that's turned the studio from an industry punchline to arguably the most creative and daring animation studio in the West. Honestly, for like maybe most of my life, Sony Animation was very clearly getting laughed by the rest of their competition in the theatrical animation film race. They were the studio that brought you Open Season, Hotel Transylvania, and the Emoji Movie. Safe bets, quirky visuals, but overall pretty mixed critical reception at best. For a while, Sony's animated output felt like it was sitting in this strange, weird Schrodinger's cat area. Nothing bad enough to be clowned endlessly, besides the fucking Emoji Movie, but also nothing with that kind of creative ambition or cultural relevance that studios like Disney, Pixar, and even DreamWorks were regularly achieving. It felt like the studio was just competing to keep up, but not actually trying to lead. That all changed in 2018 though. The release of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was such a breath of fresh air in the animation industry at the time. It's honestly really hard to not understate just how groundbreaking this film was, not just as a superhero story, but as a piece of animated cinema. Visually, we'd never seen anything like it at the time. The lower frame rates, the comic book style halftones, the split screens, the motion blur used, it deadass looked like a graphic novel come to life. After Spider-Verse 1, Sony wasn't just making animated movies anymore. They were crafting a statement that animation doesn't have to follow in the typical Disney Pixar house style, but instead could be used as an investment into creator-driven, visually bold, narratively original projects. In 2021, Sony followed up Spider-Verse with Mitchell's vs. the Machines, a zany scrapbook-like art direction and a heartwarming story about family, individuality, and the dangers of AI. Another so clearly personal story for those that worked on it. Truthfully, I hadn't even gotten around to watch it till working on this video, but I'm so glad that I finally did, because it's such a unique passion project of a film. We once again saw this commitment to creative-driven stories with the second installment of the Spider-Verse trilogy, Across the Spider-Verse. Although a lot of the working conditions that animators were placed in during the duration of this filmmaking process were pretty damn bad, at least all that tireless work resulted in the creation of arguably the greatest animated film ever made. And now again with K-pop Demon Hunters, we see that commitment extended once again, with a culturally specific, stylistically fresh film. Sony Animation's not afraid to mix tones, genres, or audience expectations. Even if the films are different in content, they all share that commitment to unique voices and trust in the directors and artists to let their identities shape their work. While other studios are growing increasingly more risk-averse, choosing to play it safe with already established IPs with a focus on greenlighting sequels to their franchise films, at times even Frankensteining together literal fucking TV shows into movie sequels in an attempt to pay artists even less than what they're owed. Compared to all of that, Sony's upcoming slate of animated films, along with what's in development, is an incredibly diverse and original lineup. Like obviously you have the third installment of the Spider-Verse franchise, Beyond the Spider-Verse, which could cement the franchise as one of the greatest film trilogies of all time, if it sticks the landing, and ever comes out. As well as sequels to Mitchell's vs. the Machines in development. But besides those sequels, everything else is an original property, all ranging in genres and styles. You got two new projects from maybe my favorite animator of all time, industry legend Genndy Tartakovsky, with Fixed, an animated R-rated comedy coming out next month, and an action fantasy epic in development called The Black Knight. You got a sports comedy movie about a basketball playing GOAT, a sci-fi adventure film set in China called Tao, an Afrofuturistic coming-of-age story called Tut, and even more stuff still in development. All of these tonally different films highlight Sony's commitment to unique, creator-driven stories. I gotta emphasize again that I literally had no idea what to expect when I first clicked to watch K-pop Demon Hunters. But what I ended up being presented with was one of the most stylish, heartfelt, and refreshingly sincere animated films in recent memory. And the reason why it works isn't just because it's a well-directed and beautifully animated film, because it's definitely both of those things, but because it took a risk and wears its heart on its sleeve. The success this film is having isn't some coincidence. It's the byproduct of a studio that's quietly undergone one of the most impressive glow-ups in modern day media. While other studios are leaning harder into sequels, nostalgia, and brand familiarity, Sony is giving its artists the room to take real risk. There's no unilateral house style that all the films must fall under. Their output feels so incredibly creator-driven, and they embrace the idea that trusting artists leads to stronger, more unique works. It's trusting voices that aren't usually centered in animation spaces. Movies like K-pop Demon Hunters, Spider-Verse, and The Mitchells vs. the Machine don't just look different, they are different. because they're made with different philosophies. And it actually seems like the audiences are finally noticing this. We're in an era where the appetite for fresh stories, new perspectives, and bold visuals has never been higher, and Sony seems to be the only major Western studio actively feeding that hunger. There's something genuinely so refreshing about a major studio that has effectively rebranded itself around one core idea, taking chances, and actually really meaning it. Obviously, there's no guarantee that any of Sony's upcoming films will even be any good.
Bombastic side-eye. Criminal offensive side-eye.
But the important thing is that unique and creative films like these are actually getting the chance to even exist. These movies feel like the people who made them loved what they were creating instead of just fulfilling a mandate. And in a landscape where so much content feels committee approved or designed for synergy, that passion truly stands out. If Sony keeps this momentum up, this artist first creative energy might just redefine what success looks like in animation. Not just in terms of box office or Oscars, though they'll probably get a lot of those too, but in the terms of audience trust, of identity, of originality. And if the rest of the industry is paying attention, then who knows, maybe this era of experimentation won't just be a Sony thing. Maybe it'll start something bigger. Because if there's one thing K-pop Demon Hunters proves, it's that the future of animation isn't playing it safe. It's letting creators get weird, get personal, and tell the stories only they can. And honestly, that's the most exciting direction the media could ever wish to go. But seriously Sony, give me like 2 more sequels and a TV show spinoff off this. Appreciate you guys watching to the end of another one of these, and for all the love I've been getting recently. I promise y'all it does not go unnoticed. Was I incredibly behind talking about this film? 100%. Honestly, I was kinda hyper fixated on Superman at the time. I even wrote up a whole Superman review that I kinda had to scrap, but in hindsight, it allowed me to talk about this amazing film and Sony Animations earlier than I would've if I had to record and edit a whole nother video beforehand. But thanks every single one of you once again. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts about K-pop Demon Hunters and Sony Animation down below. I'll talk to you guys next time.